Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to today's story. Stay tuned for what happens next in this unexpected love story. Will Emma and Kevin cross paths again? It's been a few days since the awkward blind date, and Emma couldn't stop thinking about what happened. Her stomach churned every time she remembered the way she had rushed out of the restaurant. She felt embarrassed, humiliated even, but there was something else, something unexpected. A strange sense of regret lingered, as if she had missed an opportunity. She had never expected to meet someone like him, someone who made her feel so seen, even though it had all started with a mistake. But the more she thought about it, the more she realized that maybe, just maybe, she hadn't been wrong about him at all. The sound of clinking dishes filled the small apartment as Emma fumbled with her keys at the door, her mind still on the man she had run away from. She let out a sigh, shaking her head. She couldn't believe she was letting a random guy from a blind date get to her like this. But there was something about him, his calm demeanor, the way he listened to her, the way he didn't try to act like someone he wasn't. She had seen so many people in her life, always pretending, always putting on a mask. But not him, not Kevin, or whoever he really was. Her thoughts were interrupted when her phone buzzed. It was a message from Jenny. Emma bit her lip and stared at the message, unsure how to respond. Should she tell Jenny the truth, that she had sat at the wrong table and ended up talking to a stranger? Or should she just lie, tell her it didn't work out, and move on? After a moment of hesitation, she typed back. She didn't hear from Jenny for a while. The seconds seemed to drag on as Emma wandered around her apartment, unpacking her work bag and staring out the window. But just as she was about to turn her phone off, another text came through. Emma's heart skipped a beat. She read the message twice, wondering if Jenny was onto something, or if it was just her overthinking again. She stared at her phone, waiting for a response. It didn't come right away. She paced the room, trying to shake off the strange feeling in her chest. After a few minutes, her phone buzzed again. Emma's heart raced at the thought. Was Jenny really suggesting that she reach out to him? To someone she didn't even know? What if he didn't even remember her? What if he thought she was crazy for running out like that? But then again, why had he just let her go so easily? Did he feel the same way she did? Before she could talk herself out of it, Emma found herself typing a message. She hit send, her heart in her throat, as she waited for the response. It was a few minutes before her phone buzzed again. Emma blinked at her screen, feeling a rush of relief. It was really him. He hadn't forgotten her, and he actually wanted to meet her again. She smiled to herself, a wave of warmth washing over her as she replied. As she set her phone down on the kitchen counter, Emma couldn't help but feel a little giddy. Maybe this wasn't the end of the story after all. Maybe it was just the beginning of something new, something unexpected. The next morning, Emma arrived at the cafe a few minutes early. She looked around, nervously adjusting the strap of her purse. It felt like a whole new world. She wasn't just the waitress anymore, sitting at a fancy restaurant, hoping for a fairy tale. This was real, and she was about to meet the man who had somehow made her feel like anything was possible. As the door chimed and Kevin stepped inside, Emma felt a flutter in her chest. He smiled when he saw her, and for a moment, the awkwardness of their first meeting seemed like a distant memory. It was just them now, sitting at a table, about to start a new chapter. "Hi, Emma," he said, his voice warm and friendly. "Sorry about the mix-up last time, but I'm glad we're doing this." Emma smiled back, the nervousness slowly melting away. "Me too. Thanks for giving me another chance." She took a deep breath, feeling more at ease than she had in days. And just like that, the tension between them faded. This was real, and maybe, just maybe, this could be the start of something great. Stay tuned for what happens next in this unexpected journey. Will Emma and Kevin's second meeting lead to more than just coffee? The following morning, Emma arrived early at the cafe, her heart beating in anticipation. She had dressed carefully, not wanting to seem too casual, but not wanting to appear like she was trying too hard either. The sound of the door chiming as people came and went only heightened her nerves. She kept adjusting her hair, glancing around the cozy space, trying to steady her thoughts. When she saw Kevin walk through the door, her heart skipped a beat. He looked just as good as he had at the restaurant. His sharp suit, his confident walk, and that smile that made her feel like everything was going to be okay. Kevin spotted her almost immediately. His eyes lit up with recognition, and he made his way over to the table. "Hi, Emma," he said, his voice warm and easygoing, like they had known each other for much longer than just a few days. "It's good to see you again." He pulled out the chair opposite her and sat down, leaning in slightly, as if eager to continue their conversation from where they had left off. Emma smiled, feeling her nerves ease a little. "It's good to see you too," she replied. She took a deep breath, trying to fight the butterflies in her stomach. "Thanks for meeting me here." She picked up her coffee, sipping it to buy herself a moment to gather her thoughts. The smell of the fresh brew and the quiet hum of the cafe seemed to calm her. Kevin smiled as he watched her, clearly comfortable in the setting. "Of course. I'm glad you reached out. Honestly, I was kind of hoping you would." He paused for a moment, looking at her with that same curious expression he had when they first met. "I know this whole thing started with a mix-up, but I really enjoyed talking to you the other day. It felt real, you know." He leaned back in his chair, his posture relaxed but his gaze steady, waiting for her response. Emma felt her face flush at his words, but a warm feeling settled in her chest. She hadn't expected him to feel the same way. "Yeah," she said, her voice a little softer now. "It felt real to me too. I don't know, it was nice just talking to someone who didn't expect anything from me. It was easy, like we were just two people sharing a moment." She paused, feeling a little vulnerable, but not wanting to hold back. "I'm just not used to this kind of thing. I mean, people don't usually talk to me like that." She felt a little embarrassed, but she pushed forward. "I guess I'm used to being looked at as just the waitress or the girl from the diner." Kevin's expression softened. "I get that," he said, nodding slowly. "You're not just a waitress, Emma. You're someone who has a story, someone who's worked hard to get where you are. And that's something I respect." His words were sincere, and for the first time since they sat down, Emma felt truly seen. She smiled, grateful for his understanding. "That means a lot, Kevin. You don't know how much that helps." She paused, looking at him with new curiosity. "So, what's your story? I mean, you mentioned tech last time, but I didn't really get the chance to ask you what you do." She tilted her head slightly, genuinely interested. Kevin chuckled, shifting in his seat a little. "Right. I guess I've been a little vague about that, haven't I?" He smiled again, clearly enjoying the way their conversation was flowing. "I'm in tech. I run a startup, actually. We focus on developing new software solutions for businesses. It's not all glamorous, though. There's a lot of pressure, a lot of late nights. But I've built something I'm proud of." He looked at her, as if gauging her reaction. "It's not as exciting as it sounds, honestly. But it's what I do." He shrugged, but Emma could tell he was passionate about it. Emma nodded, impressed. "That sounds amazing. You've really built something for yourself." She paused, then added, "I've always wanted to be in something creative. I've been working as a waitress, but I dream of opening my own art studio one day." She smiled a little wistfully, then shook her head. "I know it sounds silly. I've been saving for it, but it feels like such a far-off dream." Her voice trailed off, the weight of her aspirations hanging in the air between them. Kevin's eyes softened. "It's not silly," he said gently. "It's a big dream, but it's a real one. And I don't think anything worth having is easy to get." He paused for a moment, as if thinking over his next words carefully. "I know it might seem like I have everything figured out, but honestly, I didn't get to where I am without a lot of setbacks. A lot of failures. But every time, I got back up because I knew I had to." He leaned forward slightly, his voice lower, more intimate now. "So don't give up on that dream. It's yours, and you're the only one who can make it happen." He smiled again, a quiet confidence in his eyes. Emma felt a spark of hope, a feeling she hadn't let herself feel in a long time. She smiled back at him, grateful for his words, for the encouragement she hadn't known she needed. The cafe felt warmer now, not just from the coffee, but from the unexpected connection between them. She could feel the chemistry, the way their conversation had gone from awkward and hesitant to easy and natural. Maybe, just maybe, this wasn't a mistake after all. The conversation continued to flow smoothly after that, their laughter filling the space between them. It was simple, really, but in the simplicity, Emma felt something she hadn't experienced in a while. Hope. Hope that things could change. Hope that maybe, just maybe, she could make her dream come true. Stay tuned to see what happens next in this unexpected connection. Will Emma take the leap to follow her dreams? And will Kevin be there to support her along the way? The next few days passed in a blur, with Emma thinking about Kevin more than she cared to admit. Their coffee date had left her feeling lighter, as if the weight of her dreams wasn't so impossible to reach anymore. Every time she walked into the diner, she imagined what it would be like to have her own studio, her own space to create and share her art. And every time she thought about Kevin, she realized just how different he was from anyone she'd ever met. He had texted her later that evening, and their conversation picked up where it had left off. It was casual at first, just exchanging stories about their day, but with every text, Emma felt a little more drawn to him. She never expected someone like Kevin to be so open, so genuine. It was like he wasn't hiding anything, not like the men she had known in the past, those who saw her as nothing more than a waitress, a temporary fixture in their lives. Kevin, though, he saw her as more. Emma stared at her phone one evening, waiting for another text from him. She had grown used to their late-night chats, finding herself smiling at the screen as she read his messages. But tonight, there was something different about the way he texted her. Emma's heart skipped a beat as she reread the message. What did he mean by help? She had shared her dream with him, yes, but she never expected him to offer anything more than encouragement. But this was different. She typed a response quickly, but her fingers hesitated as she tried to find the right words. She paused before hitting send, feeling a pang of guilt. What if she was asking too much? What if he didn't mean what she thought he meant? She read the message again, unsure how to interpret his words. Emma sat there, stunned. It was one thing to receive kind words and encouragement, but this was something else entirely. She never expected someone like Kevin, someone with his resources, his wealth, his success, to take a real interest in her dream. She had never known someone who genuinely cared about her ambitions, someone willing to help without asking for anything in return. Her heart swelled at his words, and she didn't know what to say. She had never experienced this kind of support before, someone believing in her when she had always struggled to believe in herself. It made her feel vulnerable, but in the best possible way. The next day, Emma met Kevin at a coffee shop again, the one where they had first reconnected. He was already sitting at a table when she arrived, his usual calm demeanor in place, but there was something different in his eyes, a quiet determination. I've been doing some thinking, Kevin said as soon as Emma sat down. I've already spoken to a few people who might be able to help you get your art studio off the ground. We could start small, maybe a shared space at first. That way, you wouldn't have to worry about all the overhead right away. And I know a couple of local artists who might be interested in collaborating. Emma blinked in surprise. You've already talked to people? She shook her head, still processing. But this is moving so fast. I didn't expect this. I thought I'd have to figure it all out on my own. Kevin smiled, his eyes warm. I know, but you don't have to do it alone. Not anymore. Emma sat back, feeling the weight of his words settle on her heart. For so long, she had kept her dreams to herself, never believing that they could come true. And now, here was someone who barely knew her, offering to help make it happen. She felt a mix of emotions, gratitude, disbelief, and something else that she couldn't quite name. It was too much, too soon, but she couldn't deny that it was exactly what she needed. As the conversation continued, they made plans to visit a few locations in the city that might be perfect for her future studio. The more they talked, the more excited Emma became. She had always known her dream was possible, but with Kevin's help, it suddenly felt like it was within reach. Maybe this wasn't just a fantasy anymore. Maybe it was real. Later that evening, as Emma lay in bed, she couldn't stop smiling. She had never imagined that a simple blind date, a mistake, could lead to something so incredible. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like anything was possible. Stay tuned to see how Emma's journey unfolds. Will her dream of an art studio become a reality with Kevin's help? Over the next few weeks, Emma and Kevin worked together to bring her dream of an art studio to life. It wasn't easy, but every step of the way, Kevin was there, offering support, making connections, and even showing up to visit potential spaces with her. Emma couldn't believe how much had changed since their first awkward meeting. It felt like her life was finally moving forward in a way she had always hoped for, but never truly believed was possible. One afternoon, they stood in front of a building in the heart of the city, a place Kevin had helped her find. It was a beautiful old loft, filled with natural light and a blank canvas of possibilities. Emma was practically buzzing with excitement, but there was a nervousness in the pit of her stomach. This was the moment. She had to decide if this was really going to happen, if she was ready to take this leap. Kevin looked over at her, sensing her hesitation. "What's on your mind?" he asked gently, his voice calm and steady, just like always. Emma hesitated for a moment, looking at the space in front of her. It's a huge step, Kevin. I've been dreaming of this for so long, but now that it's real, I'm scared. What if it doesn't work out? What if I fail?" She crossed her arms, trying to calm the nerves that were starting to take over. Kevin smiled softly, stepping closer to her. "I think that's exactly why it will work," he said. "You're not afraid to fail because you care so much. You care about your art. You care about what you do, and that's what makes it worth fighting for." He paused for a moment, his eyes never leaving hers. "You don't have to be afraid of failing, Emma. You just have to keep going, even when it gets tough. And I'll be here to help you, every step of the way. You're not alone in this." Emma felt a lump form in her throat as she looked at him. For the first time, she realized just how much Kevin had done for her, not just with the studio, but with everything. He had believed in her from the very beginning, even when she hadn't believed in herself. It was more than she could have ever hoped for. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his words settle into her heart. "Okay," she said finally, her voice steady. "Let's do it. Let's take the leap." She smiled at him, feeling a sense of relief wash over her. She wasn't doing this alone anymore. With Kevin by her side, she felt ready to face whatever came next. The decision to move forward with the studio was just the beginning. Over the next few months, Emma worked tirelessly, getting the space ready. She painted the walls herself, hung the artwork she had created over the years, and brought in furniture and supplies to make the place feel like her own. Kevin continued to help in any way he could, offering advice, connections, and the occasional word of encouragement when things got tough. But as the studio came together, something else began to change. The more time they spent together, the more Emma realized that her feelings for Kevin were growing deeper than she had anticipated. One evening, as they sat together in the studio after a long day of work, Kevin turned to her. "You've done something incredible here, Emma," he said, his voice full of admiration. "I can't even begin to imagine how much effort it's taken, but I've seen you pour everything into this. It's beautiful. You're beautiful." He paused, his gaze lingering on her for a moment too long. Emma felt a warmth spread through her at his words, but she didn't know how to respond. She had grown close to him, yes, but she wasn't sure if it was just the connection from their shared goals, or if there was something more. She had always been cautious with her heart, unsure if she was ready to let someone in. Kevin seemed to sense her hesitation, and he looked at her with a quiet understanding. "I know we've talked a lot about your art and your studio, but I've been thinking about us too, Emma," he said softly. "I don't want to rush anything, but I think you should know that I'm falling for you." His words hung in the air between them, a vulnerable confession that made Emma's heart race. For a moment, Emma just stared at him, her mind racing. She hadn't expected this, but now that the words were out in the open, she couldn't deny the feelings that had been building inside her. She had always been afraid of love, afraid of trusting someone again. But Kevin was different. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm falling for you too," she admitted, her heart pounding in her chest. "I didn't expect it. I didn't think I was ready for something like this, but—" She trailed off, unsure of how to put everything into words. She had never been good at talking about her feelings, but with Kevin, it felt like the right time. Kevin smiled softly, his expression warm and genuine. "Then let's see where this takes us," he said, his voice full of hope. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt like everything was falling into place. She had her dream studio, she had someone who truly cared for her, and she was finally learning to trust herself again. It wasn't going to be easy, but with Kevin by her side, she was ready to face whatever came next. Stay tuned for what happens next in Emma and Kevin's journey. Will their love grow stronger as they build a future together? As the weeks went by, Emma's art studio began to flourish. The small space, once an empty loft, was now alive with color, energy, and creativity. She spent her days painting, organizing exhibitions, and welcoming other local artists who had started to take an interest in her work. Kevin was there every step of the way, offering his support in whatever way he could. It wasn't just the financial backing anymore, though that had been crucial. He was there, quietly encouraging her, helping with the small details, and, most importantly, being by her side as her dreams began to unfold. One evening, after a long day at the studio, Emma was sitting at the counter, sipping a cup of tea, her mind buzzing with ideas. The studio was peaceful, the only sounds coming from the soft hum of the overhead lights and the distant noise from the street below. She was about to call it a night when the door opened and Kevin stepped in. His face lit up when he saw her, and she couldn't help but smile in return. "Hey," Kevin said, his voice warm. "I hope I'm not disturbing you." He took a step further into the room, a little shy but eager. "I've been thinking about something." He hesitated for a moment, as if unsure how to continue. Emma raised an eyebrow, curious. "What's on your mind?" she asked, setting her cup down. Kevin took a deep breath. "I know we've talked a lot about the studio and your art, but there's something else I've been meaning to say." He walked over to her, standing close but still respectful of her space. "I've been thinking about us, about what we have together." He met her eyes, and for a moment, the world outside the studio seemed to fade away. "And I just want you to know, I'm serious about this, Emma. About you and me. I want to build a future together." His voice was soft, but filled with intention. Emma's heart raced, her breath catching in her throat. She had known that she had developed feelings for Kevin, but hearing him say those words, with such sincerity, made everything feel so real. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. Her emotions were a whirlwind, but all she could do was nod, unable to find her voice at first. Kevin smiled gently, sensing her hesitation. "I know we've both been through a lot, but I really believe in us. I believe in you. I've watched you transform, Emma, from someone unsure of her dreams to someone who's now making them happen. And I want to be there with you, for everything, whether it's the studio or whatever comes next. You've got a future, and I want to share it with you." He paused for a moment, his words sinking in. "So, I'm here, Emma. I'm all in." Emma's chest tightened with emotion. She had spent so much of her life feeling alone, fighting for what she wanted, and now, here was Kevin, someone who not only saw her but believed in her future, and in them. She felt a surge of warmth, realizing just how much she had come to care for him. The fear of letting herself truly feel for someone had always held her back, but now, with Kevin, it felt different. She felt safe. "Kevin," Emma said, her voice quiet but steady. "I don't think I've ever had someone believe in me like you do." She took a deep breath, finally gathering the courage to speak her truth. "I want that future too. With you." Her eyes locked with his, and she could see the depth of his feelings reflected back at her. "I'm ready for this. Ready for us." She smiled softly, the weight of her past fears lifting. Kevin's expression softened, and he took her hands in his, squeezing them gently. "I'm so glad to hear that, Emma." His voice was full of tenderness. "Because I'm not going anywhere." He pulled her into a gentle embrace, holding her for a moment longer than she expected. It felt comforting, like they were both finally on the same page, no longer held back by their pasts. The next few weeks were a blur of excitement and anticipation. The studio continued to grow, and Emma's confidence in her work and herself grew right along with it. She had more gallery showings, and her art was starting to gain more attention. It was everything she had dreamed of, and more. But the best part wasn't just the success. It was the fact that Kevin was right there beside her, supporting her every step of the way. One evening, as they stood in the studio, looking at the newest pieces Emma had finished, Kevin turned to her with a thoughtful expression. "You know," he said slowly, "I've been thinking about something. I've always wanted to take you to a special place. A place where we can make new memories together." He smiled, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "How about we take a trip? Just the two of us. Somewhere you can relax, where we can enjoy the moment without any distractions." He took her hand gently, his fingers brushing against hers. Emma's heart skipped a beat. "A trip?" she asked, feeling a little surprised but excited by the idea. "That sounds incredible." She smiled at him, realizing just how much she wanted to experience life with him, beyond the walls of the studio. Kevin nodded. "It's time for both of us to take a step back and enjoy what we've built, together." He leaned in slightly, brushing his lips against her cheek in a tender kiss. "What do you say?" he asked, his voice full of hope. Emma smiled, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. "I say yes. Let's do it. Let's go." She squeezed his hand, feeling her heart soar with the possibilities of what the future held for them. Stay tuned for the next chapter in Emma and Kevin's journey. Will their trip mark the beginning of a new chapter in their lives? Emma and Kevin's trip was everything they had hoped for. The soft whispers of the ocean, the distant call of seagulls, and the warmth of the sun on their faces made everything else fade away. It was the perfect escape, a place where the weight of the world seemed distant. They had chosen a small coastal town for their getaway, a peaceful haven that offered both tranquility and adventure. Emma couldn't remember the last time she had felt so relaxed. No deadlines, no expectations, just the two of them, exploring new places and enjoying each other's company. One evening, they found themselves walking along the beach, the water gently lapping at their feet. Kevin had his hand resting on her back as they strolled together, the sky painted with soft shades of orange and pink as the sun set. They stopped for a moment, standing side by side, taking in the beauty around them. Kevin turned to Emma, his expression thoughtful. "You know," he said, his voice soft but serious, "I've been thinking a lot about how much has changed since we first met. It's hard to believe how far we've come." He paused for a moment, looking out at the horizon. "When we started this whole journey, I didn't expect to find someone who would make me feel like this. You've changed my life in ways I never imagined." Emma's heart fluttered at his words. She had always been careful about opening herself up to people, but with Kevin, it felt like she didn't have to be afraid. His words made her realize just how much she had come to care for him, how much she had let herself trust him. "You've changed my life too," Emma replied, her voice full of emotion. "I never thought I'd be here, in this moment, with someone who truly believes in me, in my dreams. But here we are." She smiled softly, feeling the warmth of the sunset and the closeness between them. "I'm so grateful for you, Kevin. You've made me feel like anything is possible." Kevin smiled back at her, his eyes filled with affection. He reached for her hand and gently took it, intertwining their fingers. "I'm glad you feel that way," he said, "because I want to keep building this with you, Emma. Whatever comes next, I want us to face it together." He squeezed her hand lightly, as if making a promise to her. Emma's heart swelled with a mix of happiness and nervous excitement. She had never felt so secure in a relationship before, so certain that the person standing beside her was truly someone who would stand by her no matter what. As the days passed, their connection only grew stronger, each moment spent together weaving them closer. On the last evening of their trip, as they sat at a small restaurant overlooking the ocean, Emma realized something that took her by surprise. She was ready for whatever came next. The fears that had held her back, the insecurities about her worth, seemed so small now, dwarfed by the love and support Kevin had shown her. She was no longer afraid to take the next step in her life, whether it was with her art, her studio, or with Kevin. As they finished their dinner, Kevin reached across the table and took her hand once again, his eyes full of meaning. "I've been thinking," he said, his voice quieter now, more intimate. "I don't want to wait for the perfect moment to tell you this anymore." He took a deep breath, his eyes not leaving hers. "I love you, Emma, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you." Emma's breath caught in her chest, and for a moment, everything else in the world seemed to disappear. The sound of the ocean, the soft murmur of the other diners, it all faded into the background. The only thing that mattered was Kevin's words, and the truth behind them. She smiled, feeling tears well up in her eyes. She had been afraid of love for so long, but now, in this moment, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. "I love you too," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "And I want that too. A future with you." Kevin's face broke into a smile, and he leaned across the table, brushing his lips against hers in a soft kiss. As they pulled away, they both knew that this trip had marked the beginning of something new, something real. Their journey together was just beginning, and whatever came next, they would face it together. Stay tuned for what happens next in Emma and Kevin's story. Will they continue to build their future together, side by side? Back home after their trip, Emma and Kevin settled into a new rhythm. The studio was thriving, and Emma's confidence was growing with each passing day. She had found her place, not just in the art world, but in her life as well. The foundation Kevin had helped her build felt more solid with every step they took together. Yet, Even as everything seemed to fall into place, Emma couldn't help but feel the weight of the next big step hanging over her. It wasn't just about the studio anymore. It was about them, about their future together. One evening, after a long day at the studio, Kevin came by as he often did, his face lighting up when he saw her. "Hey, how's everything going today?" he asked, leaning against the doorframe with his usual easygoing smile. Emma smiled back, wiping a smudge of paint from her cheek, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "It's going great," she said, her voice full of energy. "I've had a few clients come in, and I'm working on a new piece that I'm really proud of. It feels like everything is moving forward, you know?" She glanced around the studio, taking in the familiar surroundings that had become her sanctuary. "I couldn't have done this without you, Kevin. You've been more than just a friend or a supporter. You've been a partner. In every sense of the word." Kevin's eyes softened at her words. He walked over to where she was standing and pulled her into a gentle embrace. "I've always believed in you, Emma. From the moment I met you, I knew you had something special. I'm just glad I could be here to see you make it happen." He pulled back slightly, looking down at her with a serious expression. "But there's something I've been thinking about lately. Something I want to talk to you about." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She wasn't sure where this conversation was going, but she knew that look on Kevin's face. It was the same look he had given her when he had confessed his feelings to her on their trip. Something important was coming, and she wasn't sure she was ready. "What is it?" she asked, her voice a little softer now. Kevin took a deep breath and walked over to the small table by the window, picking up a piece of paper. "I've been thinking about us, about what comes next. And I want to be honest with you, Emma. I'm ready for the next step. Not just with the studio, but with us." He looked at her, his eyes searching hers for any sign of hesitation. "I want to spend the rest of my life with you, Emma. And I'm ready to make that commitment." Emma blinked, her heart racing. She had known this day would come, but hearing Kevin say the words out loud made everything feel so real. She had always been afraid of taking that leap, afraid of letting herself trust someone completely, but with Kevin, it felt different. She had never felt so sure of anything in her life. "Kevin," she said, her voice catching in her throat, "are you asking me to?" She didn't know how to finish the question, but the answer was already in her heart. Kevin smiled, taking her hands in his. "I'm asking you to take this journey with me, Emma. I want us to build something real, together. No more holding back, no more second-guessing. I'm all in, and I want to know if you're with me." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Emma felt like the world had shifted beneath her feet. She had always dreamed of finding someone who would love her not just for her art, but for who she was. And now, here was Kevin, offering her everything she had ever wanted. She smiled, tears welling in her eyes as she took a step toward him. "I'm with you, Kevin. Always. I've never been more sure of anything in my life." She wrapped her arms around him, feeling the warmth of his embrace, the security of his love surrounding her. Kevin kissed her gently, his hands resting on her back as he pulled her closer. "I can't wait for our future, Emma. We're going to make it incredible." He whispered the words softly against her lips, and in that moment, Emma knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. Stay tuned to see what happens next in Emma and Kevin's journey. Will they continue to build their dream together, side by side? As the months passed, Emma and Kevin's bond only grew stronger. Their life together was becoming more than they had ever dreamed of, filled with new adventures, challenges, and a love that felt like it could overcome anything. The studio continued to thrive, and Emma's art was being recognized more and more. What once felt like an impossible dream was now her reality, and she owed so much of it to Kevin. They had built this together, side by side, and Emma couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude every day. One afternoon, as they stood together in the studio, watching the last of the paintings being hung for a new exhibition, Kevin turned to her with a smile. "I've been thinking about something," he said, his voice light but filled with intent. "We've come so far, Emma, and I think it's time to take another step forward. What do you think about us getting married?" He looked at her, his expression tender, his eyes full of love and a little bit of nervousness. Emma blinked, the question catching her off guard. She had never imagined that the next big step in their relationship would be something so clear, so certain. But now that the words were out in the open, she realized she had never been more ready for anything in her life. "Kevin," she said softly, her voice filled with emotion, "I never thought I would get to a place where I felt like this. where I could actually imagine a forever with someone. But with you, it's different. I want that. I want a future with you always. Her heart swelled as she stepped closer to him, her hand reaching out to touch his. Kevin smiled, his heart racing as he took her hand. I don't want to wait any longer, Emma. I want us to start this next chapter now. Together. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, simple ring, holding it out to her with a smile that made her heart skip a beat. Emma gasped, her eyes widening as she stared at the ring. It was beautiful in its simplicity, a small diamond set in a delicate band. It wasn't extravagant, but it was perfect, just like their relationship. She felt tears well up in her eyes as she looked up at Kevin, unable to contain her joy. Yes, she whispered, the word flowing from her heart with ease. Yes, Kevin. 1,000 times yes. She wrapped her arms around him, her lips finding his in a kiss that sealed the promise of forever. As they pulled away, Kevin held her close, his voice filled with emotion. I love you, Emma. I've loved you from the moment we met, and I'll keep loving you for the rest of our lives. Emma smiled, her heart full. I love you too, Kevin, and I can't wait for all the days to come, together. Their journey wasn't over. It was just beginning. Together, they would face whatever the future had in store, knowing that as long as they had each other, nothing was impossible. Their love had been the foundation of everything they had built, and now, it was the promise that would carry them through the rest of their lives. Stay tuned for what happens next in Emma and Kevin's journey. Their love story is just beginning, and together, they are unstoppable.